My husband is addicted to Adderall. I feel so stupid for not noticing. He got a promotion at work and I thought he was excited and productive because of that. He doesn't have ADHD, but he started buying Adderall from a friend so he could do better at work. The tipping point came when his sister-in-law caught him stealing her legally prescribed Adderall because he didn't have any of the ones that he bought from his friend left and he needed a fix. His brother told him he needed to tell me and get help. He said he would, but he didn't. He tried to go to the doctor to get his own prescription, but the doctor didn't believe him or saw through it and denied it. His plan was to go to multiple doctors and get multiple prescriptions, but he couldn't find a doctor to prescribe it, and he didn't know that prescriptions are tracked, so him getting multiple ones would have been noticed. I finally found out when he had another fight with his brother, and his brother told me. My husband agreed to get help. He admitted to me and his brother that he was considering robbing a pharmacy to get it, and that was a huge shock that he was considering armed robbery. He's never even been arrested before. I thought he was seeing a professional and getting help, but I found out that last week he took our 4-year-old son to the doctor to get him a prescription. He lied about our son. Our son has none of the symptoms of ADHD, and he doesn't need it. But my husband was so desperate, he tried to lie about our son just to get his hands on Adderall. I'm divorcing him. I don't say this lightly. I tried standing by him after he admitted his plans for armed robbery, his attempt to steal from his sister-in-law, and his attempts to illegally get a legal prescription. I took on overtime at my job so he could take medical leave to get help. I really wanted him to come through this. But when he brought our 4-year-old son into it, that crossed the line. I don't say this lightly, but I don't believe I can forgive that. And then he had the gall to try and lie to me about doing that. I am so angry at him for that. I have to do what is best for our son. I feel alone because besides his brother and sister-in-law, no one knows, and they're about to do a pre-planned move for their jobs that's been in the works since last year, and they won't be nearby anymore. Sorry for my rambling, but no one knows, and it's hard. In the comments, Judgment Georgia says, "You did all you could as a supportive spouse. Now it's time for the consequences of his actions to smack your husband and smack him hard." One of the hardest things to teach in substance abuse counseling is teaching an addict's family how not to enable their behavior, how to hold them immediately and thoroughly responsible and accountable for their actions. You are doing that. You keep on just like you were doing. Protect yourself. Protect your son. Allow your husband to fully feel the consequences of his actions. Do not back off. Protect your finances immediately. He will try to grab all of the cash and valuables from the home to pay for his drugs. It is sold on the streets. Be careful though, divorce judges don't like spouses who empty bank accounts. Take your half of any joint accounts and everything in your personal accounts and move them to another bank. Do not allow him access. Change your passwords to something completely new right now. And OP says, "I have an appointment with one tomorrow, so I'll figure out the financial stuff and other next steps. Like you say, I don't want to do anything that will hurt me in court later." They hand out Adderall like candy. Honestly, the most surprising part of this story to me is that no doctor would give him the pills. Your ex-husband is going to have a heart attack, by the way. I did. And OP replies, his sister-in-law thinks that they noticed signs that he was in withdrawal or was abusing it. Since he didn't already have a prescription, it might have looked like drug-seeking behavior. They do track prescriptions in my province. My husband actually didn't know this and was trying to get multiple ones which would have been flagged. He tried our family doctor first, and then he tried other clinics. I don't know if he used his OHIP card or if the other doctors were able to see his medical record. My sister-in-law's explanation seems the most plausible to me though. Have an intervention with multiple people present. Tell him that if he doesn't get help, you're doing a trial separation. Be very sober about it, but very firm. And OP says, already did that. He agreed to get help, then he went behind my back and took our son to the doctor to try and get him the prescription. Then he lied to me about it. I don't know what to say in this instance. I think you just have to get your son as much help as possible. Therapy, absolutely, when you're dealing with an addict. Protect yourself as much as possible. protect your family as much as possible. Take all of the advice that people are giving you here and changing everything and locking up your finances. I'm sorry that he's putting you through that, OP, and I hope that you come out on the other side, safe. And now, onto the update, 2 years later. The last couple of years have been a roller coaster, but everything is settled, and my son and I are in a good place now. I want to thank the people who left supportive comments on my original post. I was surprised to receive some negative comments and DMs accusing me of being an addict, cheating on my now ex-husband, or saying I was after his money. But mostly everyone was supportive, and I can't thank you all enough. I was going through a really dark time, and your comments helped. I did divorce him. I did end up owing some spousal support, but I elected to pay it in a lump sum when things were finalized. He spent it immediately, and last I know, he filed for bankruptcy. He was originally given supervised visits with our son after the stunt he pulled at the doctor, but right now, my ex-husband is in prison. He bought Adderall from a police officer while he was on bail for having Adderall without a prescription. My son and I both went to therapy, and my son is thriving. My ex-husband currently doesn't have contact with our son. My ex-husband will have to go to court if he wants visitation again, but in order to get visitation, he has to get out of prison and clean up his act. He tried to dispute his child support payments getting cut off when he was sentenced to prison because he needs the money. He has never once asked to see our son since arrest. That was the worst part of this, was how he hurt my son. My ex-husband won't be getting released for at least a year, but I'm already dreading it. It's been an adjustment being single and going through the divorce, but my son is happy, and I'm focused on him. Thank you again to everyone who was supportive. In the comments, What a Good Sniff says, "Good for you cutting an addict out of your life. It's not easy, but you did the hardest part that many people wouldn't have been able to do." Beneficial Trash says, "That sucks. For regular people, Adderall is like a cocaine that turns a person's brain into mush. I don't even understand why non-ADHD people take it. Sure, they can concentrate and produce a lot of work, but the work is garbage. Thanks for the update. You are focusing on your son, and you know that's all you need to do." That's absolutely right. You're focusing on the future and what lies ahead for you and your son. And that's all you can do and all you should really be focusing on. He sounds like he's going through it right now, and I really doubt he's going to be back to any normalcy anytime soon. Addiction hurts us all, and it sucks to see the person that, you once loved going through addiction like that. It's not easy, and I'm sure most people can relate in some way or another. That's just life sometimes, and I'm glad that you cut that addict out of your life, OP. Thank you for the story, and I'd love to know what everyone else has to think about this one. Our next post is by user Mr. Self-Destruct, and it's titled, "Me, 29 male, with my husband, 30 male of 3 years. His parents are asking us to go back to the closet for the holidays. My husband and I have been together for 3 years and married for 6 months. He came out to his parents shortly before Christmas of 2012, and they were very accepting of him and completely welcoming to me. I met them that Christmas, and they are both awesome human beings and have made me feel like a part of their family over the last 2 years. We live a couple of states away from them and visit them several times a year. This year will be the 3rd year we go for Christmas, and there will be many other family members visiting, most of which I have never met. Among these will be my mother-in-law's parents, who are very old-fashioned in their beliefs and wouldn't take it well if they found out their grandson is gay, as per my mother-in-law. Due to circumstances irrelevant to this post, my mother-in-law doesn't get to see them often and hasn't seen them in several years. She doesn't want to upset them during this visit if she can avoid it, since they are of old age and in somewhat poor health. Though my father-in-law hasn't voiced his opinions on the matter, I'm fairly certain he is on the same page. For those reasons, today my mother-in-law asked us to be discreet and pretend that we are just friends when we visit for Christmas. My husband was pretty upset about it and had an argument over the phone with his mum, which resulted in him hanging up on her. On one hand, I can understand why he's upset and agree that we shouldn't have to hide who we are, regardless of how others may react. In his eyes, his grandparents should accept him and love him no matter what, and he doesn't want to go back to pretending to be something he's not for the sake of others' feelings. On the other hand, I would hate to be the cause of his grandparents getting upset with my husband or mother-in-law, or give her any sort of grief for her grandson's lifestyle, or even worse, be the cause of any complications in their health. After all, we are the visitors in their home, and as somewhat of an outsider, I think I should follow their wishes under their roof. I completely understand that this isn't coming from any bad place in her heart. On the contrary, she has been like a mother to me. She's only trying to look out for her parents and avoid any complications or upsetting them during the few days she can see them. It's only for 1 week, so it might be doable. Both of us look and act masculine, and even after 2 years, I still feel awkward showing my husband any affection in front of his parents. Regardless of his grandparents' presence, I have no intention of making out with my husband or anything of that sort in front of anyone there. My fear is that I will struggle to call my husband by his first name instead of one of the many pet names that we have for each other. It feels unnatural to start calling him by his first name and to pretend that we are just friends. The same goes for my father-in-law, whom I've always called suegro in Spanish, which is a word that means father-in-law. And the last thing I want is to call him that in front of the grandparents and cause a most awkward and embarrassing situation. I would also have to make up an explanation in case they ask why I decided to join my friend's family for Christmas vacation, and I can already see me tripping all over myself with nervousness trying to explain whatever I rehearsed. We will also have to sleep separately, since we're sleeping in the living room, as all the bedrooms are spoken for. Other than my mother-in-law's parents, there will also be several aunts and uncles, but half of them are okay with my husband being gay, and the ones that don't know aren't likely to make a big deal out of it from what my husband tells me. Reddit, I come to you for advice. I want to support my husband, but I don't want to upset my in-laws or their parents, or cause an uncomfortable Christmas for anyone. What would you suggest? Should we stand our ground despite my parents' in-laws' wishes? Should we suck it up and just pretend to be friends for a week? In the comments, Zizimoo says, quote, I completely understand that this isn't coming from any bad place in her heart. Well, it isn't, and yet it is. Because in the end, what this boils down to is her unwillingness to stand by her son and say, this is who he is, and we love him and his husband exactly as he is. Which is what parents are supposed to do. She's choosing to support ignorance instead of her son, and that's a bad choice. It's a choice rooted in fear, and it's a choice that just serves to perpetuate the problems that LGBTs face, even if it's on a small scale. But it's on the small scale that we've begun to change the world. The greatest boost we've had as a community in becoming accepted and gaining rights has happened because of the willingness of brave LGBT souls who have been willing to come out of the closet. It's much harder to hate when you know someone you love is a member of the target group. Your job is to pick up the slack where your in-laws have failed, by standing by your husband in whatever he decides, since this is his family. If he wants to draw the line in the sand, then you support that. If he wants to accommodate his mother's request, then you support that. On the small scale, this is his battle and is his call to make. You are his partner, so you stand wherever he does and be his rock. In the end, I think your choices should be to either go and be yourselves or to not go. I think it's a bad idea to go and live a lie even for a week. And who knows if the rest of the family is going to tread carefully, the ones who know already. How easy will it be for auntie or uncle to slip up and say something like, Jack, your husband sure does make a mean bacon dip? That's not going to go over well, especially after you've provided a rather elaborately thought-out lie to explain your presence at their family gathering. So either you go and be yourselves or don't go at all. But whatever your husband decides, that's where you stand your ground. I could see this being acceptable if you were 2 teenagers having a fling, but you're 2 30-year-old men who are married. I totally understand having conservative family, as I'm the child of a Baptist pastor, but I would refuse to lie to my grandparents about my partner, especially for a week. What if they don't die this year? What if you guys have kids in the future? Lying seems so complicated. Ultimately, I would support your husband in whatever his decision is, as it's his family. And back up to the post, there is an update. I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone for the overwhelming amount of responses and great advice. There are too many to thank individually, and it's great to see the different points of view expressing valid points in each perspective. I considered all of the points made, and I agree that the ultimate decision with how to proceed should be up to my husband, and my job is to fully support whatever he decides. I will provide an update with whatever goes down after we come back. Thanks again, and I hope each of you has a great holiday. And now, onto the update, 21 days later. Several people requested an update from me, so I decided to post one instead of replying to each one. First, huge thanks to everyone who offered words of advice and encouragement. It really helped. My husband read all of your suggestions and responses, and he was torn between what to do. But I gave him my full support with whatever he chose. He decided to reach out to his aunt, who was the one bringing the grandparents with her. Let's call her Martha, since that's her name. Martha has my husband on Facebook and knows he's gay and accepts him. My husband sent Martha a message asking if she knew if the grandparents had any idea about him or if any rumors about our marriage had already made it to their ears. She said they had heard rumors of him and didn't take it too great. Grandma made comments about it being a tragedy to the family and feeling sorry for my mother-in-law. Martha told her that it's every mother's wish to see her children happy, and if my husband was happy, there's nothing to feel sorry about. She assured my husband that she would prepare both grandparents with the news that we would also be there for Christmas week and advise them to keep their personal opinions to themselves. They arrived to Phoenix one day after we did, and I awkwardly introduced myself by name. I didn't mention who I was or why I was in that house with their family. I just let it be assumed that I was the guy my husband married. His aunts were super welcoming and accepting, and his grandparents were very kind. The question of who I was never came up. It was a don't ask, don't tell situation for the whole week, and everyone was just fine with it. I wasn't affectionate with my husband in front of his family, but that was regardless of his grandparents' presence. I still call my father-in-law by suegro, which means father-in-law, even in front of all of the family, and nobody seemed to mind at all. I didn't interact with the grandparents too much, except to ask if they needed anything. They are very weak and would spend most of the day being helped to their bed or downstairs to sit in the living room. They didn't go out much either because they thought that it was too cold and would get tired quickly. I only shared a bit of casual conversation with both, and they were very kind to me, and both gave me a hug when they parted back home. The closest there was to any drama was a point in which the grandpa made a comment during a conversation about a relative of theirs not being fit to raise his daughter due to his lifestyle, referring to some gay uncle who lives in Mexico. I didn't personally hear it, but my husband's aunt came to me to ask me not to pay any mind to the old man's opinions and to understand that he is just stuck in his old ideas. I later learned why it wasn't a big deal. All in all, we had a great Christmas week. In the comments, PhotoGC says, "I'm very glad this turned out so well. I have family that are gay and in a long and loving relationship. During Christmas, they come together, sit together, leave together, and everyone in the family is aware of it and comments on how adorable they are. But we all keep it hush around the great-grandma of the family, as she's old and they just don't want to cause any drama. It's not about being ashamed or not accepting of them or their love. The family just knows that it would do no good. They won't be alive for much longer, they will never change their opinions after so long, and frankly, the cousins know everyone loves them. It may upset some, but sometimes the drama just isn't worth it when you only see them once a year. It would be different if it was a bigot with a decade of their life left, but when it's old people with a handful of years left at most who never leave their house to perpetuate their close-minded views, it's not worth it." Yeah, I guess this is a sort of a happy ending. But man, having to hide who me and my spouse are because it would upset my family, and that being more important than who we are, wouldn't fly for me. I hate that when it comes to older people, the argument about them being from a different era comes up or whatever. Yes, and then they arrive in this era via the passing of time and changing social norms and laws. So they need to make a conscious choice to reject education, awareness, and empathy. I remember my nana, 70-something at the time, who grew up poor and with little education, huffing in frustration that gay marriage and equal rights was even a question, that it should be legalized here in Australia because it was the right thing to do. Later I came out to her as queer, and she just said, "I figured," and went back to her book. I miss her. This one rings true to me simply because it's realistic. This is the way that some people choose to handle things, and it's fine. Even if it's Reddit's first solution, not everyone wants to go through the stress of fighting or cutting someone off when you don't even see or care about them that much. Like, they've been married for 3 years, and his grandparents haven't met his husband, nor do they even seem aware that he's married. Why go through all of that while involving a large family which will probably poke their noses in and opine about the issue for people that you barely talk to? Yeah, and that rings true of pick your battles, really. There's a lot of situations where you can just pick your battles if you want and just ignore it. This seems to have been a good middle ground solution, and it all worked out fine. I think perhaps it was just a little bit of overthinking, and that's okay. Better to be overprepared than underprepared in case the worst happens. Thank you for the story, OP. I'm glad that all went well, and I hope that you and your husband continue to have a lovely life together. And our next post doesn't have an update, but I want to read it. Posted by user MasterRad1534, titled, "Am I the asshole for leaving my boyfriend's office Christmas party after he repeatedly humiliated me in front of his co-workers? This happened last weekend, and I can't stop thinking about it. My boyfriend, 30 male, invited me, 28 female, to his company's Christmas dinner, and I was excited but also nervous. I wanted to make a good impression, so I spent a lot of time picking the perfect outfit, doing my hair, and ensuring I was presentable. When we arrived, everything seemed fine at first. I introduced myself to his co-workers, and they were polite, if not a little stiff. As the night went on, though, things took a turn. During dinner, my boyfriend made a joke about my job. I'm an event planner, and he works in corporate finance. He said something like, "She just plans parties for a living while I'm out here making real money." People laughed, but I felt a lump in my throat. I work hard and I'm proud of what I do, so hearing him belittle me like that stung. I tried to laugh it off to keep things light, but then he doubled down. Someone asked me about my favorite event I'd planned, and before I could answer, he interrupted saying, "Probably one of those kids' birthday parties. That's her level of expertise." And everyone laughed again, and I just sat there mortified. The final straw came during dessert when people were sharing funny stories. He decided to tell an embarrassing story about me that I've explicitly asked him not to share. It's a personal story from early in our relationship involving a mishap that I had while meeting his parents. I was practically begging him with my eyes to stop, but he told the story anyway. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Everyone was laughing, and I wanted to disappear. I quietly told him that I wasn't okay with what he was doing, but he brushed me off, saying, "Don't be so uptight. It's all in good fun." At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself, thanked the host, and left. When he got home, he was furious, accusing me of embarrassing him by leaving. He said I made him look bad in front of his co-workers and that I was being overly sensitive. Now he's refusing to apologize and insists that I owe him an apology for overreacting. My friends are split. Some say that I should have stayed and just dealt with it later, while others think that he crossed the line. So am I the asshole for walking out? In the comments, Electronic Ladder says, "Not the asshole. Why is he still your boyfriend? Dude is a huge asshole. Ditch him and whichever friends are siding with him. They are all trash." And OP replies, "Honestly, I'm starting to question it myself. This isn't the first time he's made me the butt of a joke, but it's never been this bad or this public before. I thought maybe he was just trying to impress his co-workers, but at what cost? As for the friends siding with him, yeah, it's making me rethink some of those relationships too. He should be your ex. If he loved you, he would be proud of your job and would have been your biggest cheerleader. Instead, he used you to stroke his own ego, even knowing he was hurting you. He shouldn't need to impress his coworkers at your expense ever. It's concerning that he consistently puts you down for laughs. You deserve someone who uplifts and respects you, not someone who derides your accomplishments. Not the asshole. Why are you with this jealous, insensitive, very low self-esteem douchebag that gets to feel like the man by putting you down? He doesn't respect you. You apologize when he grovels for forgiveness, but do you trust him after this? OP replies, respect should be the bare minimum in a relationship, and this showed how little he has for me. Trust is definitely shaken, and honestly I'm questioning if there is anything left to salvage. No, there's not. If he was apologizing profusely, maybe it would be worth another effort, but instead, he's demanding an apology from you. Just be done already. Demanding an apology means that he doesn't see anything bad in what he did, and he'll probably do it again. Girl, it's time that you say enough is enough and move on with your life. Yeah, this is not someone that you have a future with. If you respect yourself and your peace, you will leave someone like this. His mask slipped, he showed who he truly is, he'll do it in front of coworkers, he'll do it in front of family, he'll do it in front of anyone. If it makes him look good and he can make you apologize for this, what's going to stop him in the future, like realistically? There's no going back from something like this. Him also demanding an apology from you is like starting a cycle of abuse with you. But even him apologizing profusely could also be the start of a cycle of abuse. There's many ways that people can abuse others. Either way, he's shown his ass in this instance. I would just be out the door that very second that he dropped those bombs on you. Good luck, OP, and not the arsehole. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.